You know, some people are so famous, or rather infamous, that they don't need last names, like Fidel, or Saddam, or Oprah, or Hillary. And in the TV biz, they're called big gets, the interviews that make headlines before they even go to air. Barbara Walters is the queen of the big get. From Obama to the Dalai Lama and every president since Nixon, you're officially a big deal when you go one-on-one with Barbara Walters.
Now you're gonna make me cry.
And when you do, you better keep your tissue handy. But how did she become such a big deal? Well, as a writer for the Today Show, Barbara got her first on-air break as the Today Girl. It was the early 60s, and in her words, the chief requirement was to look pretty and wide awake at 7 a.m. Well, Barbara surpassed those expectations and then some. She became the co-host of Today, and later was the only female broadcaster to cover Nixon's historic trip to China. She also broke new ground as the first female co-anchor on a network news show.
Well, tonight has finally come for me, and I'm very pleased to be with you, Harry, and with ABC.
Barbara was making $1 million a year, which was an unprecedented paycheck at the time, and her status as an icon was cemented by Gilda Radner's famous impression.
Hello, this is Baba Wawa.
You know, amidst all this, she launched the Barbara Walters specials, moved on to host the news magazine program 2020, and even brought together two embattled leaders, Anwar Sadat of Egypt and Menachem Begin of Israel, for their first joint interview.
You are always like this.
From Boris Yeltsin to Muammar Gaddafi, Eastwood to Reeves, Barbara has brought them all to your living room. And with that legacy, she built her next show, The View. Women discussing and arguing about everything from politics to sex.
Have you had a three-way, Barbara? In the audience.
And you gotta think, with a life like that, she has got a hell of a story, or rather, stories to tell. And Barbara's put them all down in her new memoir called Audition, which, no surprise, topping the bestsellers list. Hello, everybody. Say hi to Barbara Walters. Thanks for coming on the show.
Are you going to say what you said to me just before we went on camera?
It's quite a book, Barbara.
Quite a book, yeah.
It's quite a book.
And I said, that's like when you look at a homely baby and you say, now there's a baby. He said, that's quite a book.
It's quite a book. You're a human being who's made their living using words, and so I imagine the title of this book is an important choice.
Yes.
Audition.
Yes.
The significance of that.
Well, I felt that I had been auditioning all my life. I was auditioning as a child.
For what?
Well, I hate to start off on a sadder note, but I had a sister who was 3.5 years older than I, and who, at the time, when she was a little girl, was called mentally retarded. Today, she might have been considered autistic or intellectually impaired. She stuttered. Kids made fun of her. They made fun of me, so I was auditioning for friends. Mm-hmm. My father was, at that time, a very big figure in show business. He had the greatest nightclubs in America called Lou Walter's Latin Quarter. We kept moving every time he opened a new nightclub, so I was auditioning different schools. And my father made fortunes and lost fortunes. I was auditioning, certainly, throughout my career in television. I have finally stopped auditioning, and that's why I could write this book. What a relief.
It's a very honest book.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe too honest, I don't know.
Do you feel that way after the fact?
Well, now, I hadn't read it for a while, because it finally got published. It was such a relief. But now, when I look at certain things, I think, ah.
Why don't you say that? Hey, when you talked about having the affair with that politician in the States, that
yeah,
got all the headlines.
I just thought, why am I?
Did you know it was going to get all the headlines?
No, what happened was that I had done Oprah's show about 12 days before the show, and Oprah released only one section, which was that 31 years ago, I'd had a relationship with an African-American senator. And I had put that in because I was trying to show not just my own feelings, but that how times had changed, because if that had leaked out, it would have totally ended my career. Today, it would have been, it would have been something, but what else is new? But it made such a scene. I want to show you something. And I have the book.
You certainly can.
It made such a scene that for a while I thought I would do this. Can you see what's in the inside of this?
It's a lot of names.
Okay, it's a lot of names. Can you just, I don't know whether you can get close. Just say name, names, right?
Richard Gere, you got everybody.
What everybody, okay. And then in the back, it's the same thing, right?
Barbara Mandrell. Remember the Mandrell family specials? They were great.
They were,
Lyle Menendez in there, that's a complicated one.
Well, yes, he and his brother, a couple of murderers. Anyway, most people, when they saw this, or the publishers said, well, these are all of the people that she's interviewed, or a great many. Not at all. These are all my lovers.
Wait a second.
No, that's alone.
Wait a second. You also slept with Marie Osmond? Because I thought that.
But we didn't do it the same week, so it's okay.
Go back to the very beginning for us when you started to make your first bit of headway into this career. I mean, much is made about how it wasn't easy, but because it was a while ago, I don't think a lot of people realize how difficult it was. A lot of people were against you, including your co-hosts.
Well, when I began on the Today Show, I began as a writer. I never thought I'd be in front of the camera. There had been 15 so-called Today girls before me who were models and actresses and sang and, you know, really were quite beautiful and wonderful. And I was put on the Today Show for 13 weeks, and I stayed on for 13 years. So my big breakthrough, I mean, it sounds like we're talking about the Middle Ages, was when I was able to write for the men, not just do the girly features. And then Hugh Downs was the host and put me on the air. When he left, there was a man named Frank McGee who came in. He didn't want to be doing the Today Show. He thought it was a come down. He'd been an anchor at night. He didn't want to do a program with me, with the girl. And he went to the president at that time of NBC. Now it seems, you know, impossible to believe, and said she cannot come in on any of the serious interviews. And it was one of the few times when I stood up and said, you can't do this to me. So the compromise was that he could ask 3 questions, and then I could come in for the 4th. Did
you sometimes think that that was a good idea back when you were working with Star? Did you say, I wish I left her only to come in on the 4th question?
Star was wonderful. Star was wonderful on The View for 9 years. And Star is going through a very difficult time, and it would be very easy for me to kind of rehash. I do in the book, as you know, I go into great detail. But, you know, she's having a hard time, so I think I'll let her try to figure that out.
When you wrote this book and you knew it was going to be published, there are a lot of people's names who are in here. And did you contact people to give them a heads up? How does that work?
No, because there's nobody in there. Most people are very happy to have been in there. The only one I did contact was that romance you talked about, and I did write to the senator and say, look, I'm going to be writing about you, and he wrote back to me. He had divorced his wife. She has since died. He's been married for 26 years. It's kind of ancient history. I should let it be because it sounds much sexier to make it sound as if it happened last month. But it didn't.
It didn't, yeah.
But most of the people that I write about, I think all of the people, there's almost no one there that I'm unkind to. This is not a kiss and tell book.
It kind of is, though, isn't it?
Like who?
Well, no, I mean, that's You Kissed and Told.
Oh, well, that. Well, we did that.
Yes.
We did that already.
Oh, yeah. Fair enough. When you talk a lot about your family in the book, well, the stuff about your father is really interesting. And one story, I mean, I want to get more on it, is a lot of times one parent will say to the child, hey, go ask your dad to do something. Go get your dad to come in the house. Your mother asked you, is this true, asked you to go to the nightclub where your father was and ask him not to leave the family?
Yes.
How old were you?
Well, I have to say, you see, that my father lived in this very glamorous world of chorus girls and showgirls and so on. And to my knowledge, never cheated. Maybe he did and I didn't know. But they had a very difficult marriage. And I guess I must have been about 12, 13, yeah. And I took my sister with me. I remember taking her by the hand and going to the Latin Quarter. This was in New York. And it was like early afternoon, but the club was dark, and asking my father, please not to leave. And then I took my sister to the movies. I just didn't want to go home. That's when there were all of the, you know, big movies and stage shows and so on. And then by the time I got home, my mother said, Daddy isn't leaving.
After you left your father at the club that day with your sister, what movie did you go see? Do you remember?
Isn't that funny? No. Oh, why didn't I make something up? I remember the first movie I ever saw in my life.
What was that?
Rebecca.
Okay.
I've
never seen that.
Because you're too young.
I'm too young.
Yeah.
I'm not that young. I'm 61.
You could have seen it.
Okay, stop kidding. All right, stick around because Barbara's going to come around. When we come back, we're actually going to talk about which drunk first lady America didn't see and why Barbara would not interview O.J. Simpson. We'll be right back. All right, you're back here on the hour. Barbara Walters, Audition. It's her new book, Audition. It's all about her life trying to audition for the hour. And I would argue she's doing lovely. You know, the thing you're probably the only person in the world who has had Fidel Castro, Ronald Reagan, and also George Bush drive you around in their Jeep.
You know, I never thought of that, but they did.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Now, what were they? What's with the driving a Jeep business?
Okay, well, the Fidel Castro was because we did this interview, I think 1978, something like that. And after I had crossed the Bay of Pigs with him on a speedboat, we were the first Americans to have crossed the Bay of Pigs. Castro, you could never do this interview today, and you wouldn't get it, and, well, he's a little sick, so, but anyway. He said, what would you like to do? And we went through the Sierra Maestra Mountains, where he had been a guerrilla, where he had, when he was trying to overthrow the dictator, Batista. And he drove, smoking his cigar, driving. I was holding his gun in my lap. And hard candies in case there were children along the way. So that was that Jeep.
What a day. What a day.
To say the least. Ronald Reagan, that Jeep was about 6 months after the assassination attempt on his life. And we went to his ranch, and he drove me around, and what I said then was the scroungiest Jeep, because it was a very old Jeep with this dog sitting in the back and bouncing around that ranch. And I said, this is the scroungiest Jeep I've ever seen. And he said, well, we're trying to be, we're not in a recession. He was trying to be frugal. This was too frugal. What was the third?
George W. Bush.
Well, George W. Bush was when I went down to do the interview with him, which was just a day before he was going to be inaugurated at his ranch, which is really a ranchette. It's not much of a ranch.
It's also his newly acquired ranch.
Yeah,
right?
It's his newly acquired. Yeah, and he had a little fish in a fake fish pond, in front of. Well, it wasn't fake. It was man-made, and we drove. And we went through a waterfall that was this big and so forth.
I think.
But to him, it's a ranch. I'm not going to argue.
I think
want a ranch, have a ranch.
Not many people would be surprised that was kind of a facade. Who was the worst driver?
I think Fidel Castro. I mean, I wasn't comparing because he's driving and smoking and talking and looking and,
Neither Bush nor Reagan offered you a gun while you were in the car?
No. How do you like that?
That's just
and nor did they offer me hard candies.
No
but I had never thought that these were three people who had taken me on their Jeep. Gee, wow.
Let me have some names to you here, actually. Well, White House.
White House.
Betty Ford.
Well, Betty Ford, I did something that you could not do today because nothing today would be secret. And that is when I interviewed Betty Ford and Gerald Ford on the last days of his presidency. She took me around the private rooms of the White House, and she was slurring her words, and it was obvious to me that she was on something, that she was either drinking or taking pills. I did not show it. And as it turns out, we do know that she had a very severe problem. And when she came out of rehab, I did the first interview with her when she talked frankly about it. And I write about Betty Ford, first of all, because you couldn't do that today. And no, probably would I. But also because I think that Betty Ford made more of a lasting contribution than almost any president. Look what she did with the Betty Ford Institute to have people be able to come and to get over the addictions that she had. She was a remarkable woman, but I didn't show that piece of tape.
You wrote that book, How to Talk to, practically anything.
How to talk to practically anybody about practically anything. Yeah.
In that book, you had a bunch of conversation starters, guaranteed conversations. I'm not going to ask you your conversation starter, although maybe I will ask you one of them, which is if you were hospitalized for 3 months but not really too sick, whom, and it can't be a relative, would you want to sit in the next bed?
Well, my favorite answer was Johnny Carson's, who said the best damn doctor in town.
He would make you laugh.
He would make you laugh, and you'd be healthier. I would want somebody who was funny but didn't talk too much. Want to come?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll be tired. I'll be sitting there going, what do you want? What are you talking about? All right, here's my conversation starter. It's from the great Neil Young. Is it better to burn out or fade away?
Why does it have to be both? Why do you have to burn out or fade away? Why can't you just leave at the top?
Because he's Neil Young. He's the Lord. He knows what he's talking about.
Burn out or fade away. Neither sounds very good to me. I don't like either choice. There has to be one that says none of the above.
All right, fine, you get none of the above. If the world was ending at midnight...
Oh, you're really doing this to me. Okay, let's go. All right.
Yeah.
thought there was one question.
No. How about
These
this?
were not my questions.
These are not your questions,
No,
no.
okay.
If the world was ending at midnight tonight,
Yep.
who would you want to spend your last day with?
My
And it
daughter.
can't be family.
My daughter.
Family is
boy.
easy, Barbara. No,
If the world is who would I want to spend my last day with? Oh, the senator. Who did you say?
the senator.
Oh, how funny. No. No, I don't know. Maybe the Dalai Lama.
How about your last interview? Who would you like to be your last interview?
Osama bin Laden.
What if Osama bin Laden was why the world was ending at midnight?
I think I could manage that. I have said that. I have said that I don't want to get any more big gets.
Yeah.
But if Osama bin Laden called, I'd pack.
The O.J. Simpson thing. You turned O.J. Simpson down?
We have, because O.J. Simpson always had conditions. He either wanted to plug his book or he wanted money. And then I was asked if I wanted to do the interview with him with the book that was called If I Did It, because the people who were doing it said you could get him to confess. And I didn't think I could get him to confess. And they said, it would get huge ratings. And I said, maybe, but I don't want to do it. And I turned it down.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Barbara Walters. Barbara Walters has her memoir. It is called Audition. All right, tomorrow in the program, the founder of Right to Play, Johann Olaf Koss, and everything you wanted to know about the sound of music. Thank you very much for watching. Next time.